Hey, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been chatting for, feels like hours already, sharing all the hot tea that I think if you DM Colin, he'll send you the hot takes for the nonprofit renaissance. I think, are we doing that, Colin?
We'll have to see. We'll see if
Or
I get
maybe,
any DMs.
Colin, I heard you're starting a Patreon on the side just for the hot tea, hot takes, director's cuts of the podcast.
Well, we talked a little bit earlier about how this is a triple Enneagram 7 episode. So I'm just
terrible idea. Terrible.
Yeah.
So sorry to everybody.
if I get some DMs, we'll see.
Yeah, hashtag 21. That's what
If
we call this.
anybody can follow this conversation, the
Yeah.
spider web of this next 45 minutes, like
It'll be more of a game, I think. It's more of a game for you to try out.
This is the Enneagram Renaissance. The nonprofit Renaissance, ladies and gentlemen. So we welcome you today. Fun times and helping organizations, to our leaders, to our organizations, to our friends, to our creatives, to our C-suites, to our pastors, to our directors. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the comments. Thanks for sharing what you think. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We appreciate you. And thanks for listening, subscribing. It's been such joy. Keep recommending the guests, the friends, and how we can help you, go further and grow faster. That's our heart, and that's why we do what we do. It's been such a fun ride. And Colin, we got a friend here today that's been all over the world, and we've been kind of chatting it up right now. I don't know how much, because we have hours and hours. I blocked out 4 hours for today. Tell me, Colin.
Everybody's favorite on a Friday afternoon. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, we're ready. We're prepared. Well, no, you've heard her already. You've probably seen her if you're watching the video. But today's guest is someone who's, like we said, her journey has taken her around the globe. She's a trailblazer in social entrepreneurship and enterprise, and just has so much expertise in sustainable business models, branding, marketing, and so we think there's going to be some pretty invaluable insights and a lot of fun, a lot of laughs along the way. So the voice you've been hearing is Callie Himsl. So please welcome her. Callie, it's so good to have you.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for being entertaining on a Friday afternoon. It's the energy I needed.
Yeah.
Is that what we are? Is that what we are, Callie? Really? Is that what this is? Wow. No, this is we didn't give the top of the bio is wife of one and mother of two. Is that correct?
Yes.
I just want to make sure. Okay, I just want to make sure, because I think.
Is that a clarification you usually
the top
make?
Of the bio, yeah.
Well, because I want to make
wife
sure.
Of one, just of one.
Because if we're that entertaining, that means she's just having a break from her kids and her husband. If this is
just screaming in my face, yeah.
Are you at home right now? Are you at home right now?
I am at home, but my kid, I can't complain too much, because my kids, they go to daycare every day from basically 9 to 5, and it is incredibly expensive. So I will complain about that, but I get a break.
For sure. Childcare is wild.
Callie, I'm going to start here, because, in the recommendations of our friends who've recommended you, like, you got to talk to Callie. You got to meet Callie. You got to meet Callie. I was like, okay, we'll meet Callie. So here we are, from Orlando, Minnesota, California, Haiti. You've dominated the West, apparently. Tell us, who are you and where are you? And let's start there for our audience. How about that?
That's it. That's a good question. Back in my 20s, I'd probably say I'm not quite sure where I am right now. But now, as a mother of two, almost 40,
a wife
40
of one.
In a few months. A wife of one. Let's clarify. I am in Orlando right now. So I grew up in Minnesota. I grew up in a small town called Avon. Avon, and the ironic part about that, I'll digress for a second here, is that I grew up always wanting to travel the world and get out and do amazing things. And the name of the town is called Avon. I end up naming my first daughter Nova. And I go for 6 months, and then somebody says, it's Avon spelled backwards. And I was like, the very thing I've been running from my whole life. It's that's a whole therapy session, I think. I don't know how that came to be.
That is, yeah. your hometown is so deep
I
in
was like,
your head
oh,
that
how did
you
that
just,
happen?
man, that is
But
wild.
to any Avon people listening, love you guys. But yeah, like literally a town of like 1,100 people. If you started dating somebody, you had to ask their last name to make sure you weren't related. Like everybody. Everybody knew everybody, but it has great family values. Very very blue collar. Very like work hard, integrity, and that taught me a lot. But I did always have this like desire, if you're watching National Geographic or you see these commercials or whatever it is, like as a kid, and you're just like, oh, there's this whole world out there. Like I need to explore. So I got a degree in graphic design, moved to San Diego, and then
So
worked in
real quick,
corporate. Yeah.
how far north in Minnesota is Avon? Are you like up
Okay.
near
So
Canada, or are you?
it's like so exactly central. So like
Okay,
very
all right,
very central. Yeah. Yeah.
So
okay.
from the Twin Cities, how far?
Like an hour and a half, like west.
This is just for Colin's geographical,
Yeah,
condition. He's
yeah,
got.
because I definitely know where the Twin Cities are on the map, and this is all making sense
Very
to me
good.
because I
Very
do
good.
know
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
There's a land of 10,000 lakes, they call it. So you just gotta
Ah,
follow the 10,000 lakes.
I hear there's a few
But
pretty great ones out there. Heyo.
the,
All right, sorry, I apologize.
hello.
I apologize. So California.
California, here we go. Yep.
Colin's like, how far is it from the Wawas on Culver's? Sorry, yeah.
Do they have a
I wish we
Bucky's
had
up in
Wawas.
Minnesota?
Which one?
Bucky's? Do they have Bucky's up there?
Oh, you know what? They should because there's a lot of land. But no, I think that's still like mainly in the South.
Hmm.
Yeah, not yet.
If you hear that, Bucky's.
Becky's looking for
Either
sponsorship.
Colin, either you're gonna edit all these out, or you're gonna get sponsorships from Bucky's, Wawas,
Listen,
and
Oh
Minnesota. So,
man. Oh
back to you,
man.
Callie. Back to you,
Here
Callie.
we go.
Sorry.
Here we go. Okay, so yep, here we go. Yes, we have something called Casey's, and we have Little Dukes. I think
I feel like I've heard
it's
of
quite a few.
Casey's. Little Duke's sounds just that's an incredible name for whatever that is.
Little Dukes.
Is it like a Bucky's or?
No, it's definitely not as impressive. But then again, nothing's really like a Bucky's, right?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So
That
when
was
I was to
Colin. That
California,
was that was Colin's drummer nickname, Little Dukes.
Little Dukes.
Yeah, one
All
Duke,
right.
two Dukes, little Duke.
I promise I'm done, and I
Oh,
promise we will edit that part. Go ahead,
No, we
Callie.
will
let's keep
not.
it
No,
going.
we will not.
No, keep it in. We need more sponsors. Yes, went out to California, worked in corporate, and worked as a designer there. I became a Christian at that time. I'll bring bring the conversation down a little bit, but I let me think here. So I moved there 2004, maybe 2004, 2005, and then worked in corporate, and became a Christian around 2010. And a lot of the reason for that was that my brother had passed away. So he was my only sibling,
Mm.
and he passed away very suddenly in kind of like a freak work accident as a mechanic. So that happened, and people always say, I was 25 at the time, right? Like you're like barely
Wow.
comprehending life, in
Yeah.
general. And so that happened, and it really, people always say life is short, and all of those kind of cliches. But when you really experience it and you face it, you begin to have what most people would have in like their midlife crisis of like, okay, like, but I was 25 and I was like faced with all of this like realism. And I began to think like, okay, one, like, is God real? And if he is, like, this is going to happen to me someday. Like, I want to know, what's next. And then two, like, what is this purpose? Like, what's the purpose of life? What's my purpose? And really all that existential crisis going through all of that. I was just having this conversation recently because I feel like in your 20s, a lot of times is like kind of your experimental era. You're like getting kind of crazy. Some people choose to, to partake in certain activities, and like begin to, search out who you are and try to find yourself. But for me, I had done a lot of partying and whatever, but it was like, I no longer needed to like that outlet to go find myself. It was more just like, oh, this is really real. Like, let me figure this out. And so So I became a Christian, and then just like any good Christian, you start to do missions, which is like really kind of
Step number
wild.
2. Yeah,
Step
yeah.
number 2, go save the world. And then step number 3, you realize there is no saving the world. That's not like a real thing. But
Interesting.
What?
in the
What?
sense,
What?
but I started working with YWAM, Youth with a Mission. Like, mind you, I've
Me
like,
too. Me too.
you did? Yeah. So I
I
Hey.
went to
did.
Mexico a
Brazil.
lot. Oh, nice. I never
Yeah.
did like the full classes. They were just like, you're a Christian, here, go build houses in Mexico. And I was like, yeah, this is amazing.
No,
Probably
I
my
have
family
completely.
went in. My family went in deep. Like I was born in Brazil, raised there, but it's called Jocum, Jovens com uma Missão, YWAM. It's the same thing, same American organization.
Uh-huh.
And are they American, U.S. or maybe I
I'm
don't know.
assuming so.
I don't know. But as a matter of fact, my sister is still and has done work with him as of recent. So shout out to YWAM, sponsored by YWAM. Call us up.
They probably need us to sponsor this. Usually
That's what I meant.
missionaries
That's what I
aren't
meant.
like making a ton of money. Yeah.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. Colin, have AI fix that for us, please. Thank you.
Totally.
Sorry, Callie. Go ahead.
No, you're great. It's exactly. That's so interesting. Yeah, they're so massive. A lot of people have interaction with them, but
Yeah.
so was going to Mexico, building houses, still working my corporate job, and then again, like any good Christian, where's like the missionary like capital of the world? Africa, right? So you're like, oh, I must go to Africa. This place is incredible. So went to Africa. I went to Kenya, and it really was
Yeah.
incredible
Now,
as a
now
culture.
up until this point, it was a lot of like short-term missions, probably 1 week, 2 week type stuff. And then
Exactly.
Africa, did Africa start as that sort of thing? Or
Yeah.
you were just like, I'm all in. I live here now.
Well, I think I would have if I was given the option, and I'm glad I wasn't given that option. And yet again, like I'm like, like 6 months into being a Christian, don't speak any other language, like have a degree in graphic design, like it was pretty wild, but it was very eye-opening. And I think a lot of people have a similar experience. Short-term missions, we can get into that as well later in the conversation, but the idea is not necessarily that they're the best or that we've been doing them the best for hundreds of years, but they do open a lot of doors for people to experience different things. And then a lot of times you kind of have, again, that like existential crisis where you begin to think like, whoa, the world is so different, and look at things through a different lens. Yeah, so I did 2 weeks there, came back, and that's when I, was in my corporate job, just like in my cubicle, like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm like going nuts. And so I began like calling, interviewing with different organizations. And I had called some people I had worked with in the past, and they said, we're going to Haiti. Would you like to go to Haiti? And this is so embarrassing, but I'll admit it for everybody to laugh at me, is I literally thought Haiti was in Africa. And I was like, Africa, yeah, I've been there. Let's go.
We're going back.
We're going back. So embarrassing.
Well,
That must have been a shock. You get there and you're like, wait a minute.
Similar. It's pretty
that's
similar.
a short. That's a short flight. That's a
There's
short
no
flight.
elephants. There's no
Yeah, sure.
like what?
Yeah. Sure. Wow, just right by Florida. I didn't know that. So that was pretty crazy because I said, okay, like, do you want to go to Haiti? I said, yes, let's go. I went, I came back, and then I said, that's it. I'm moving to Haiti. And I think
Wow.
I'm about 27 at this time. So
Okay, so time out.
yes.
You landed in Port-au-Prince for the first time. Fair. You get in the airport there. I've been there.
Yes. Okay.
How was that? Give me the 30-second. How was that?
You know how that was. That's why you asked
No,
it.
I need our
But,
listeners to know how that was because
Lord. Well,
and you wanted to move back because it's a 50-50 split on like I
that's
need
true.
to get a return flight right now, or God does something in your heart to say I need to stay here because wow. So give our listeners kind of
Oh
that
man.
perspective.
I haven't thought about it for a while. Now that I'm trying to relive that moment in my head, I'm gonna lose all my street cred because I think I cried. I
No,
think I cried in the
I believe.
airport.
I
I
believe you.
think I was like,
So
we are gonna
Yes.
get stabbed and die.
okay, so it wasn't like, oh, this is so beautiful. It was like a what have I done
The
type of.
airport is wild. Well, at least it was at that time because it was before they've done a lot of construction since then. And like, but you would land and you had to like, you did the stairs right off of the plane, and so you were like kind of on the runway, but there was everybody was everywhere, and then you had to get on this like makeshift shuttle and then go to the airport. I mean, and they didn't give you visa paperwork before. You like filled it out on the ground, so there's like hundreds of people. It's like 120 degrees. Everybody's shouting, everybody's yelling. You've never heard this language before. Like, oh, I like have goosebumps right now. So you're just like this, like stupid white girl from Minnesota, and you're just like, oh my gosh, and everybody's pulling bags and this and that, and like, oh my god, they warned us about like, what do we do? Like, you're just in fight or flight. Like, I think I cried. So lame. And I remember the Haitian guy who's our friend now, Ron. He picked us up, and he's like chill as heck, man. He was just on the phone talking to somebody, like, yeah, go here. And I'm looking at him like, how does he not know? How is he not concerned for us right now?
No,
Anyway, yeah.
you did you live there? If I'm correct me if I'm wrong. 8 years.
Yeah, so then
That
I moved back, and
that's a
yeah,
lifetime. That's a lifetime. So
Mhm.
Lord,
tell me.
yeah.
Okay, you went back. Why and how did that happen?
Okay, yeah. So I think I spent the week and a half there, or whatever, and it really did have those moments where I was like, holy cow, this is just wild. Like, you don't you've been there, like, but if for anybody who hasn't, it's these experiences, like, you can't even begin to imagine, like, your entire worldview is shifted within a
Mm.
matter of moments, and it's in the way you didn't know people ate a certain way or talked a certain way or they hugged a certain way. And these warm
Mm.
cultures, like, I'm from a German culture, like, my grandma don't even hug me. And it's like these warm cultures that are like blunt, and my husband's Haitian now, so I can say all these things, but they're blunt, and they're passionate, and they're aggressive, and they're touchy feely and lovey, and like, it's just, and you're just like, I don't know, like, your brain has like completely shifted from like how you understood life to like what
Mm.
the possibilities are now, and it's
Mm.
wild.
So you caught up on your hugs immediately.
A lifetime of hugs in Haiti.
Right.
That's the name of your
Man.
documentary.
Yeah.
Yes, but
Hugs from
and
Haiti.
Or 90
it,
Day Fiance. No,
Ah,
edit that.
that sounds more
Just
like
kidding.
a.
we're
We've
not
been
editing
Whoa!
that.
together. We've
I'm
been
gonna make a.
together like 11 years. Okay. Yeah.
But that's going to be on the promo. Colin, this is the promo. Welcome. This is Callie, 90 Day Fiance.
90 Day
Don't worry,
Fiance.
90 Day Fiance, wife of one.
Like,
Okay,
mother of
just
all.
That's funny.
I've literally never heard anyone say that phrase, wife of one. Like, you are the only one. I don't,
Yeah, is that a common thing to say?
maybe in Brazil?
You guys need to get out more. Like, you know what I'm
Is
saying?
it is it like in Brazil? Is it like opposite of like Mormon, where it's like the women have like multiple husbands, or like, I don't. I'm just curious. Help me understand.
Educate us.
Yeah.
So, in the
Or if you want us
beginning,
to move on, let's let us know.
in Genesis 26, verse.
Oh
No, we're not
no.
talking about that, bro. If wife of one is a problem to you, Colin, we'll talk with HR after
Oh
this
yeah.
podcast.
Good. Way to turn it around. All right. Okay. So 8 years in Haiti.
8 years in it.
8 years in Haiti. Found the love of your life.
Yeah.
And so then after that, you decided to come back stateside, as it were. And so how do we go from there to kind of to where you are now?
Oh man. Okay. So
To
this is like
Disney,
this is like
to
therapy
Mickey
for me.
Mouse.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Florida. So weird. Okay. So I went down with an organization that did church-to-church partnership. I was with them for about 6 months. And then when I was living there, I was learning the language. I was getting to know the culture. I was like really, again, like having that world shift, in my mind. But not only about like culture and, you know, these big things. It was also about like missions and like how we were
Mm.
doing things and what people really thought about foreigners, and how like when you really like, and that's why it was important to me to learn the language too, because I was like, I like really, as an extrovert, first of all, I was like, somebody please talk to me. And then secondly, like, I was like just so interested in like, okay, but what do you really think? You know, like type of a thing. So it became, yeah. So I began to be like, okay, like we're handing out these bags of rice every day, but what did you know? And then we leave, and then another van comes of other people who think they're saving the world. And all these things are really complex, and like they are what they are. But I got turned on to this idea of social business, and that is that's like something at the time that we didn't really even have a word for yet. So it's important to note, I think, in this conversation too, the a lot of people. Can you take him outside? My dog's claws. A lot of
We'll be
people.
right. We'll be right back. Right back after this break from
My
YWAM.
dog. Sponsored by. Wow. Just like people building houses.
Yeah. No, hey, start us there, Callie. I do want to
Okay,
hear
I
that kind
forgot
of
what I was
the
talking about though.
no when it clicked in your mind, does social kind of like the
Social
work
business, social
or
entrepreneurship.
social
Yeah.
business or
Oh
when
yeah.
did it click?
Okay.
When did you see? When did kind of like what God was doing? When the entrepreneurial, when the artist in you, when did all that come together?
Okay. Yeah. So the important note, I think a lot of people associate Haiti with a natural disaster, and that natural disaster was an earthquake, and that was in 2010. So people were, a lot of money was coming into Haiti, a lot of things were happening in Haiti. And so, I'm sorry, it was 2012, but it's January 10th, 2012. So a lot of foreign aid, so much foreign aid was coming into Haiti, and there's all of these case studies about it, and it's very much used as an example of what went wrong during that time. And so it was like foreign aid was coming in, and it meant like, okay, we're going to buy people rice, we're going to buy people water, we're going to like whatever. But there wasn't necessarily this thought about a long term solution or long term
Mm.
sustainability. And so there are a few people in the country. One of them was Shelley Jean, and she had started something was called the Parent Project at the time and moved to Papillon. And so what she was doing was this kind of this new idea, I guess you could say, about training people in artisan, like how to make jewelry, how to make all these different things. And then they were being employed, and poverty, you know, was being eradicated. And these people had dignity, and they had jobs for the first time. They were learning soft skills. And so I had gone to, I think I like visited the workshop. It was fairly small at that time, maybe only 20 people or so. So after I left the church to church partnership, I began working with her, and that's where I spent the majority of my time in Haiti.
So that kind of started for you in Haiti then, or
Yeah.
was that kind of okay? So you started doing that, and then at what point did that kind of lead you back here?
Yeah. Well, it's a little it's a little complicated, but I was, yeah, so I was working there. I fell in love with this idea of like, oh my gosh, business could like alleviate poverty, and a lot of people, I think, were starting to put those pieces together, and this idea of social business, social entrepreneurship really began to come to light, and other people throughout the world were doing it, or were able to now put a vocabulary with it.
Right.
So really it's using business as a means to either alleviate poverty or help to solve a social issue. You don't have to be a nonprofit. You can be a for-profit. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what that looks like.
Mm.
I always say talk to your tax person. Like it really just comes down to what paperwork you want to do.
Mhm.
But you can be a nonprofit and you can sell goods. You can be a for-profit and you can do social good. Like, and so it really just
That's
depends
good.
on what your goals are
Yeah.
as a company. So I was able to, I call it the glory days of Haiti, because it was just this really incredible time where, like I said, a lot of money was coming in. We can debate on a later podcast about where that money went. But the point is like there was hope, and there was excitement, and there were things happening in the country. And so I had the privilege of working with some really incredible people. Some former presidents came down. I got to work with Secret Service, which was so cool. Vogue was there. Donna Karen of DKNY. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, you can't just say I work for Secret Service and just keep going, right,
Well,
Colin?
that's well because I worked with Secret
We have
Service.
a clause. I know. Now you told us, so it's not a secret. So tell me more.
No, because I don't want to say it because it was Bill Clinton and they're trying to tell him that he was part of the Epstein thing. I don't want people to think I was involved in
Oh,
this.
cool. So now this is well.
Ah,
I'm glad you heard that promo. Tune into
well,
the podcast for the nonprofit Renaissance.
let it be known. Let it be known.
I have no
No
association.
connection.
No connection. But I mean, regardless of your stance, it's pretty cool to see a president, a former president.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
All right, we'll talk. We'll talk offline after this. No, I'm kidding. So just mess
Yeah.
around. I love that. Go ahead.
I don't even remember what. So go ahead, Colin. You were going to say
Well,
something.
so let's talk about let's kind of lean into social entrepreneurship, social enterprise, because this might even be. I mean, I remember when you and I first talked, it was even a newer idea for me, and so it's probably
Okay.
it might be a newer idea for some who are listening. You gave a pretty good description. It's a fairly simple idea. Again, using business as a way to make an impact in the world. Is there a distinction between someone, a social entrepreneur and what they're doing, and just like a typical nonprofit? Would you say a typical
Mm.
nonprofit is a type of social enterprise, or is that kind of like a different thing, like a different headspace or mindset focus? What would you say?
Ooh,
Clarify that.
that's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. Yeah, I mean, I think what your intention it all comes down to like why does the entity exist? So if it's a business or a nonprofit or a not for profit or whatever you want to call it, like why does it exist? Like what's the end goal? And it like I think about do you remember like now we can all age ourselves like Tom's shoes?
Mhm.
That was like one of the first to,
I do. I
but it
do.
was one of the first
I
H
own
has an
5 pairs.
entire closet
Yes.
just dedicated to
Yes.
but it was one
Tom's.
of the first
Yeah.
to come out to be like that really
One of
opened up like the mainstream to say like
yeah.
wait a second we can still function as a society and buy our cool shoes and do what we want to do, but we can also do good like within
Mm.
that. So I think it really just comes down to what your end goal is. For sure, a lot of times nonprofits are set up to solve like a social issue, essentially,
Mhm.
right? I think like my biggest takeaway would be that somebody would take away from this part of the conversation would be that you don't have to be a specific type of person to give back. And I think that's what we're told a lot. We have to be like a missionary or we have to be a social worker or something really specific. And I think people who are bookkeepers have an incredible talent that I don't have. Like people
Mm.
who can do construction, like whatever it is, whatever your talent is, there's a space and a place for you to give back. And I think like whether that is for a nonprofit, whether that's to your neighbor or whoever it is, like you don't have to be a specific person with a specific skill set. Like at the end of the day today, you go out and you do something good. And
Mm.
that's like the whole point of it.
So, at the risk of sounding super lame, right? You could kind of say like it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle type of thing, right? So,
Yeah.
would that be a so if for those who are listening, it sounds like what you're saying is it's not even necessarily like this whole like venture that that if you're kind of like, well, I don't know, or I don't have, or I don't want to like start something to
Yeah.
then like enact this, right? Like, so it's like, there's a way to do this. And now does that go like beyond just like being someone who donates? Like, what's the difference between like, okay, well, I just want to be someone who donates my money. Is there like a distinction there? Like, so talk to someone who might not be in the place where they're saying, I want to start an organization or I want to start a business with this
I say
particular
good, don't.
thing in mind. You're very wise.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the world needs
No.
another nonprofit. But I mean, and that's what I'm like trying so hard to articulate, and I'm not sure how to say it, but like the sense of like I did it, right? Like I did like the Christian missionary thing. I left everything. I sold everything. I moved to a developing country and I lived with no hot water and electricity and all of these things for so many years and like got all this trauma from it. But like I did it and I lived it. And like on the other side of that, I realized like you actually don't have to. I'm glad I did, and it was for me, and it really was who I believe God created me to be. And like, absolutely. But my hope would be if you are that donor and you work at a bank and you are just trying to send your kids to college and that's what you're doing and you want to like help somebody to get to Africa on their mission trip, like you need that too. Like it all kind of works in unison. And I
Yeah.
think that God uses us at different times and in different areas and in different seasons for that skill set. I think it's just important to listen to what that inside tuition is inside of you. I remember at a Bible study before I had all of these experiences, I was like talking about missions and whatever. And I remember saying to this girl, I said, you mean if somebody knocked on your door and said, do you want to move to China tomorrow? You'd say no. And she was like, no, why would I? And I was like, I thought everybody felt like that. And she was like, no. And that was eye opening for me because I was like, oh, I should probably
Okay.
listen to this.
Like maybe I need therapy. Like I don't know what
Yeah.
what's wrong with me.
Like China?
Not everyone is like, yeah. So where does someone start then, right? So or like, you know, what does it look like for you to help someone with this or to work with a business, right? Because it seems like a lot of times you'll come into, you know, a business will hire you to consult and kind of like help them figure out how do we use this to create this impact. Like what is that, you know, what's the process for somebody?
Yeah, thanks for asking. You know, when I had resigned from my position at that organization around 2018, and I had all of this like life experience, but I had no like actual credentials, I would say, like in the American eye. And so I put myself back in school and ended up getting a degree in community advocacy and social policy through the School of Social Work. And it was such a therapeutic experience for me because, you know, you're having these papers that are like, just the most like in-depth intellectual, like why does poverty exist and how do we like, you know, get rid of it and all these, and like it was so therapeutic because I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been experiencing every day for 8 years, you know. And like the funniest part is like you have to like peer review, you know, and like this 21-year-old is like, I went to Buc-ee's the other day and like, you know, like their life experiences, it's just like, oh my gosh, like, and you just like saw 5 people die on the street, like, so it's just wild. So it was really really therapeutic for me to gain that, but also really helpful for me as well, because I had this degree in graphic design and in communications, and then now I had this degree in social justice, essentially. So really beginning to pair those two. During my time in Haiti, I was able to travel a lot outside of Haiti as well, and go to a lot of different conferences for people who were like-minded. And what I realized during that time too was like, oh, even though we're in different countries and different cultures, we're all experiencing so many of the same problems, trying to help alleviate some of these social issues. And so I naturally fell into this area of consulting. So when people come to me, I walk alongside of them for wherever they're at. There's some people who are just thinking about starting a business or a nonprofit, or they see a social issue that they're passionate about, they want to help on. Maybe that means I connect them to a nonprofit that already exists. Maybe I help walk them through what that looks like. A lot of my skill set is in branding and marketing. So I use this analogy a lot where maybe somebody's like in Cambodia, they're rescuing women from sex trafficking and they're teaching the women how to make bracelets. And the bracelets are sold to help, you know, bring them income so they don't have to move back into this area of sex trafficking. But their website's terrible and nobody knows they exist. And so like they're never going to sell a bracelet. And these, you know, so the women are not, you know, it's not a sustainable model. So a lot of times it's like it really, and maybe you guys have this experience, you think it's just setting up a website or whatever that looks like, but it's really helping that completely depleted and exhausted nonprofit, people who are wearing 100 different hats and doing 100 different things. You're showing them what they can be. You're showing them like, oh my gosh, I could be just as good as any brand. I can sell something that actually and you help them develop their story, and you help them communicate all of the things that they've experienced over the years, because people need to hear these stories. They're incredible.
Yeah.
And it's a way to be a liaison to connect the two worlds, right? Maybe that person in Kansas who's, again, working at the bank, trying to get their kids into college or whatever, but they have a passion, and like they can buy the bracelet, right? You're connecting these two worlds that would never have been able to connect before.
Yeah. Would you say that that a lot of businesses that you work with kind of already have like the desire to make the impact, or they're even like they're already working towards it, and it's just a matter of like, well, of helping them actually put that into action, or helping them see maybe blind spots where it's like, I see what you want to do. This is stopping you. How do we get from here to here?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it becomes kind of therapy, right? Because if you're a nonprofit leader, like, and you're hearing this, like, you're not alone. Like, I know you're wearing
Hmm.
100 different hats. I know that you're like
Yeah.
absolutely exhausted at night. Like, things are keeping you awake, and your self care is coming last. And I think like so much of them is just like being in tears, being like, I have put my heart and soul into this. Like, now what
Yeah.
do I do? And again, that help, like that idea of like helping somebody see themselves anew for the first time, to be like, I can do this. I have been doing this.
Yeah.
Is so special.
Yeah, it's so to encourage those out there, nonprofit leaders, if you're in a place where you're struggling, or maybe you're beginning to kind of doubt the vision that you had, a lot of times it's not necessarily that the vision wasn't there, the vision wasn't the right one. It's just sometimes you need somebody to help you kind of take where you're at now and move forward. And I think that's one of the benefits of working with someone like you, Callie, or working with a agency like Verse, is being able to have someone who says like, we've been here before, and man, we can
Yeah.
specialize in this. You specialize in your vision. You
Hmm.
specialize in what the impact that you've wanted to make in your heart for years and years and years, and let some other people come in and help you do that thing. It's huge. It's impactful.
Then we jump, Cal. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. We love partnering with kind of artists, creatives who have the kind of the worldview and experience that you have. So I appreciate you kind of sharing from that experience and from that heart, which is important. Where do you see? You kind of answered throughout our time together, but where do you see the future of social entrepreneurship heading, particularly with nonprofit growth, with community impact, and what's kind of your pulse? What's your feel, and where's it going?
Oh, good question. I think it's only going to grow. I think people are looking for authenticity. People are looking for purpose. Not to sound like a boomer, but like the generation that
Okay, mom. Okay, mom.
I feel like the generation that is like the millennials and like coming up, it's like that idea of like wanting to live a life of purpose. I think it's only going to grow, and I think that the idea again is like you don't have to like reinvent the wheel. Like, you can already do what you're doing, and you can do it well, and like you can focus in on one small thing and like push into that. Like, don't I feel like people get paralyzed sometimes where they think that they're going to get to a stage to get ready to give back or to move into that life of purpose. And it doesn't happen. Like, we're no better than anybody else. I didn't do anything better than anybody else. Like, I just like did this stupid thing because I was 27. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't want people to get stuck to think like that people who are quote unquote like changing the world or doing some like amazing things are any different than anybody else. They're not. Like,
Mm,
everybody, like,
that's great.
whether they're, trust me, and I've worked with them, like whether you're a massive corporation or you're a small little nonprofit with 3 people, like everybody's learning as they go, and like nobody has it together together than anybody else. Most basically nobody has it together. So everybody out there is doing a good job. Good job.
And we're going to end it right there. The world is
Yeah, listen,
burning. No one has it
Colin
together.
claims.
And we'll
Colin
see you
has some
guys next
claims.
time.
No, Colin, you claim you have it together, bro. Like you've told me, I've heard your episodes that you have it all
Listen,
figured out, and
it's the facade I put on to feel better about myself, and I guess we're all doing therapy today.
Hey, sponsored by BetterHelp. Thanks for sponsoring.
I don't think there's been an episode where H hasn't declared a sponsor that we don't actually have. So,
There's
but we're
method to
teed
the
up.
madness.
There's quite a bit of we got
They're listening.
30,000 sponsors just in they're in the pipeline. They're in the pipeline.
No,
is what they are.
And real talk before Colin wraps up. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. I know we love laughing. Laughter is whatever therapy and medicine for the soul, or chicken soup for the soul. One of those. So yeah, chicken soup.
That's old school right there.
I know. It's like, now we're really dating ourselves. Do you remember that?
My mom just became a raving fan of this podcast with that one mention. She's like, I think we should listen.
Yeah, they're probably looking to sponsor. Yeah.
No, seriously, thanks for sharing. Thanks for how can before Colin kind of wraps us up, and how can people find you? How can people connect with you if you're listening and your heart connected, with Callie's heart and kind of her mission and her passion? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I would love to connect with you, hear about whatever stage you are at, either personally or as a business or a nonprofit. We have a company called Hark Creative Council, HARK, creativecouncil.com. You can get in touch with me right up there.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here. So much incredible wisdom, and I mean, again, someone who's lived the life. This isn't just this sounds like a cool idea. Someone who's been there, who's done it, and so Callie, again, like H saying, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for listening week in and week out. It's a pleasure to have you every time. So thank you so much. We will see you next time on the Nonprofit Renaissance. See you later.
Thanks again for listening to the Nonprofit Renaissance. We hope it ignites a renaissance in you and helps you go further and grow faster. Be sure to share, rate, and subscribe. And if you'd like to recommend or be a guest on our show, send us an email at podcast@versecreative.com.